Good morning children. Today in this class I am going to explain about the concepts of ocean temperature and ocean currents. In the previous class we have discussed about the salinity of the ocean, and in this class now we will discuss about how the temperature of ocean would be varies and how the water in the ocean would be get the heat. Okay, now let us see the concept of ocean temperature. Okay, if you see the water and land relationship, if the land gets quickly heat from the sun and the water part would not get heat very quickly and would not lose heat very easily. So there is no much variation in the temperature of ocean. So if you see the relationship of water and land absorbs solar energy or sun heat very quickly and it increases its temperature very rapidly. And at the same time the land gets cool very quickly, but the water which does not get the heat very quickly and which does not lose the heat very quickly. So there is no much variation in the temperature of ocean. Okay, suppose if you see the temperature of land, there is so much difference between the temperature during daytime and night time, but in the temperature of water, if you see the temperature of water during daytime and night time in the oceans, there is no variation. There is very less variation in the temperature. Okay, in this way, with the help of land and water relationship, we can say there is no much variation in the temperature of oceans. Okay, generally the temperature of oceans varies from -2 degrees to 28 degrees. -2 degrees Celsius to 28 degrees Celsius. But if you see the southwest monsoons, due to the activeness of southwest monsoon winds, the El Nino and La Nino were created in the Pacific Ocean. Okay, these El Nino and La Nina are the winds which heats the oceanic water. Okay, due to the activeness of southwest monsoons, it causes El Nino and La Nina. These are the winds. These are the hot winds that flows on the surface of the ocean. Okay, on the surface of the Pacific Ocean, these El Nino and La Nina were formed due to the activeness of the southwest monsoons. Okay, the southwest monsoons carries the moisture from the surface of the oceans to the inlands. So while they are moving from the surface of the oceans, they are carrying the hot winds. These winds are called El Nino and La Nina. These would be formed in the Pacific Ocean. Due to the activeness of southwest monsoons, these El Nino and La Nina were formed in the Pacific Ocean. Okay, generally the temperature varies in the oceans from -2 degrees to 28 degrees. Okay, the lowest temperature recorded in the oceans, that is inland seas, that is 38 degrees Celsius. The highest temperature recorded in inland seas about 38 degrees Celsius. Till now, the highest temperature that was recorded in the inland seas is 38 degrees Celsius only. Generally, the temperature of oceans varies from -2 degrees to 28 degrees Celsius, and the highest temperature recorded in the inland seas is 38 degrees Celsius. Okay, at the same time, the vertical distribution of temperature. Okay, now let us see the concept of vertical distribution of temperature. Suppose as one goes deeper inside the oceans, the temperature would be rapidly decreases about 1 kilometers. About 1 kilometer, the temperature would be decreases rapidly about 1 kilometer, and the temperature would be steadily up to 5 kilometers, and after 5 kilometers, the temperature remains constant at 2 degrees Celsius or -2 degrees Celsius. Okay, once vertical distribution of temperature. As one goes deep inside the oceans, the temperature would be rapidly decreases for about 1 kilometers. For about 1 kilometer, the temperature rapidly decreases. Okay. After 1 kilometer, if anyone goes inside above the 1 kilometer into the oceans, the temperature would be remains constant up to 5 kilometers. Up to 5 kilometers, the temperature remains constant. That means steadily. The temperature values remains steadily up to 5 kilometers depth. Up to 5 kilometers depth, the temperature remains steadily. And after 5 kilometers deeper in the oceans, the temperature is maintained. The temperature is at 2 degrees Celsius. Okay, in this way, the distribution of temperature in the oceans, the vertical distribution of temperature in the oceans, like this. Okay, then what are the factors that are affecting this oceanic temperature? Okay, now let us see the factors that are affecting the ocean temperature. Factors. The first and prime factor is latitudes. Okay, if the value of the latitude would be increases, the temperature of oceans would be decreases. Suppose if you see, it is the globe, this is the equator. At the equator, the oceanic temperature would be oceanic temperature is very high. Why? Because the equator part or the equatorial region get very high amount of solar energy from sun. So the oceans at the equatorial region is having very high temperature, while we are moving from to the top side of equator and the down side of equator, the oceanic temperature would be decreases. Why? Because here the sun rays falls very slantly towards the poles, so the ocean temperature would be very decreases. Okay, so the latitude is the first and prime factor for the oceanic temperature, and the second one is winds. Okay, winds that flow, when the winds flows on the surface of the oceans, it decreases the temperature of ocean on the surfaces. So winds also can change the temperature of the ocean. So winds also one of the factor of the ocean temperature. And the third one is unequal distribution of land. Unequal distribution of unequal distribution of land in the seas or in the inland seas. Okay, these are the major factors. These are the major factors that are affecting the ocean temperature. Okay, now let us see the ocean currents. Ocean currents. Ocean currents are nothing but the movement of water in the oceans. It is nothing but tides. The currents are nothing but tides. How these tides were formed in the oceans and what are the factors that are affecting the tides and how these tides were formed due to the different types of factors. These are the topics we would learn in this under this topic. Okay, now the ocean currents. Ocean currents is nothing but the tides which were formed in the oceans. Based on the temperature, these currents would be categorized into two types. Based on the temperature, these currents would be categorized into two types. Warm currents and cold currents. Okay, based on the factor temperature, we would categorize the ocean currents into two types, that are warm currents and cold currents. But okay, now let us see the flow of these warm currents and cold currents. The warm currents are always flows from the equatorial region to the poles. Okay, these are flows towards poles. The warm currents always flows towards poles, and the cold currents flows towards the equatorial region. Okay. Based on temperature, the ocean currents would be categorized into two types, warm currents and cold currents. The warm currents are always flows towards the poles, and the cold currents always flows from equatorial region. Okay, now let us see the different types of currents that are based on speed. Based on the speed, again the currents would be categorized into two types, that are streams and drifts. Okay, based on the speed of the currents would be categorized into two types, streams and drifts. Okay, here streams means if the currents would flow very rapidly, very speedily, then they will be called as the streams. Speed movement of current. Speed movement of currents are called as streams, and drifts, the slow movement of currents. Slow movement of currents that are called drifts, and the speed movement of currents are called as streams. Okay, once again, ocean currents based on temperature they would be categorized into two types, the cold currents and warm currents. The cold currents always flows towards the equatorial region, and the warm currents always flows towards the poles. Okay, based on speed, the ocean currents will be categorized into two types, that are streams and drifts. Here, speed movement of currents would be called as streams and the slow movement of currents are called as drifts. Okay, now let us see the factors that are affecting the formation of currents and how the currents would be formed. Factors that are affecting the oceanic currents. First one is the centrifugal force. The centrifugal force. Okay, how the centrifugal force would be formed in the oceans. Okay, if you see, let us assume that this is the globe. Here it is the equatorial region, and at the equatorial region also the oceans are present. Whenever the earth revolves around itself, the ocean also revolves around the earth. The oceans also revolves around the earth. Okay, whenever the movement happened, whenever the revolution is happened, the earth is continuously revolving around the sun and itself. Okay, during the revolving of earth, the oceans also revolving with along with the earth. Okay, due to this movement, due to the revolution and due to the rotation of the earth, the water currents or the oceanic currents were formed. Okay, due to the formation of centrifugal force here, always the ocean water would flows towards the waves would be formed, and these waves formed and these waves would be flows towards the poles. The waves that would formed at the equatorial region always flows towards the poles. Why? Because the centrifugal force. Due to the centrifugal force, always the waves or the currents which were formed at the equatorial region would always flow towards the polar regions. Okay, in this way, the oceanic currents would be formed due to the centrifugal force. Okay, now the next one is precipitation. Precipitation. If you see the precipitation means here, precipitation is nothing but the falling of rain, the falling of snow or dew, hailstones. The precipitation is so many types. Okay, the falling of rain, the falling of snow. There are so many types of precipitations are there, but the equatorial region getting very high amount of rainfall, at the same time it receives high amount of solar energy. Okay, during the rainy season, the equatorial region gets so much rainfall. It gets very heavy rainfall. Due to this rainfall, the oceanic water would be increased. Due to the heavy rainfall that would be formed, that would be rainfall caused in the equatorial region, that increases the volume of the oceans in the equatorial region. Okay, due to the increasing height in the equatorial region, the waves or the currents would be formed due to the precipitation. In this way, the oceanic currents were formed. Okay, now let us see the winds. How the winds would form would affecting the oceanic currents. Okay, whenever the low atmospheric pressure would be created, the winds would be flows from the surface of the oceans. Whenever the winds flows from the surface of the earth, they forms the waves on the surface of the water. Due to the formation of these waves, the oceanic waves forms oceanic currents. Okay, the winds that will flows with the speed 50 miles per hour. 50 miles per hour. If any wind flows with the speed 50 miles per hour, it can drag the water. It can drag the water also with the speed 0.75 miles per hour. Okay, whenever the winds flows with the speed 50 miles per hour on the surface of the ocean, it can drag the water along with the wind with the speed of 0.75 miles per hour. Okay, due to this, the oceanic currents will be formed in the oceans. Okay, finally, the last one is solar energy. Solar energy. Okay, how the solar energy would be affecting the formation of oceanic currents? Okay, if you see, the equatorial region gets very high amount of solar energy during the summer season. During the summer season, because of the sun rays or directly falls on the equatorial region, the oceans which get heavy amount of heat energy during the summer. So whenever we boil the water, generally the water expands. Due to the heavy amount of heat absorption at the equatorial region, the water in the ocean should be expanded up to 8 centimeters. Up to 8 centimeters. Due to this expansion of water in the equatorial region, due to the increase of height of the oceanic water in the equatorial region, the water forms in the ocean it forms the waves. These waves would form the oceanic currents in the ocean. Okay, in this way, these four factors would affecting the oceanic currents in the oceans. Okay, now once again I am saying the factors: the centrifugal force and the precipitation, the winds and solar energy. These are the four factors that are affecting the oceanic currents. Okay, now let us see the ocean as a resource. Ocean as resources. How the oceans would be useful for the humans? Okay, the oceans will be very useful for the humans in terms of food, in terms of minerals like chlorine, chloride, and in terms of water, in terms of formation of electricity with the help of oceanic currents, and the ocean floor is a resource for the crude oil or the resource for the petroleum. Like in this ways, in so many ways, the ocean would be useful for the humans. Okay, once see the ocean as a resource of food for the humans, like fishes. Okay, and the minerals, it is a resource for the minerals like chlorine, salt. Okay, salt is the major mineral that would be available in the oceans, and the sea floors are on the sea floors we will observe on the seashores we will observe the corals, and some part of the oceans that are having very heavy high amount of petroleum reserves. For the petroleum also it is a resource. Okay, in these ways, in these so many ways, the ocean is acting as a resources for the humans. Okay, thank you children.